I'm certainly not Ojinika Ojiokwe, but we're going to give What's Trending our best shot today as Oji has some prior engagement. So good morning to you, viewers. We start What's Trending today with many reactions to the big news out of River State. Of course, we know that Governor Siminalayi Fubara is gearing up for his first official day as the reinstated governor of the state, taking over from the sole administrator, Ibot Ete Ekwe Ibas. It comes after the 6-month emergency rule put in place by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on March 18 ran its course. In a statement put out yesterday evening, President Tinubu said that it gave him great pleasure to declare that the emergency in River State of Nigeria shall end with effect from midnight. Well, President Tinubu also defended his decision to call the emergency in the first place, giving his 3 critical reasons to back it up. The first being that there was total paralysis of governance in River State. The second, that critical economic assets, including oil pipelines, were being vandalized. And the third was that the State House of Assembly was crisis-ridden and divided. Let's now take some reactions to his announcement from users on social media. We begin with Sarki, who tweeted saying, "Great news for Rivers State. Excited to see Governor Fubara, Deputy Governor Odu, and the State House of Assembly back in action. He is hoping for stability and progress moving forward." EJ also tweeted, and wrote, "As one of the vocal opponents of this draconian measure from the very beginning, I stood firmly against it, arguing it was an assault on our democratic principles and an overreach that stifled the voices of the people. I made several videos in this respect. I'm glad that common sense has prevailed and democracy has triumphantly returned to River State, restoring the rule of law and the people's right to self-governance. This is a win for all of us who believe in true federalism and accountability. However, we must not lose sight of the dangerous precedent this undemocratic action has set in our country, and we must remain vigilant to prevent such erosions of our democracy in the future." We're still going to take another reaction. This is from Akin Tunde, who wrote, "Unfortunately, this is sad for our democracy and a shame. In a democracy, power should never be exercised outside the clear text of the Constitution. This episode sets a dangerous precedent that must be resisted by every legal and civic means available. How can a president order a governor to vacate and then resume office at will, as though the mandate of the people were no more than the rules of a local drinkers association?" Local drinkers association. What a comparison. Of course, we've analyzed this, in great detail, but I think there's always new angles to pick apart from it. Ayo.
Okay, new angles. I think just to maintain the voices have been quite similar along different lines as to the constitutionality of the declaration or proclamation of a state of emergency in River State. 6 months afterwards, I said earlier that even though the president cited a few justifications, yes, the transnational pipeline in Bodo local government was vandalized the day before, as well as other vandalizations like that. But I do agree with the tweet that said there should have been legal and civil ways. He should have exhausted those channels before the declaration of a state of emergency. In terms of a precedent, it doesn't all go well for the fragile, I must add, democratic structures of Nigeria. We see similar incidents of vandalization, banditry, terrorism happening in other parts of the country, yet no state of emergency was declared there, lending credence to some arguments that this was political in itself. And if you look at, like I said earlier on, that if you look at the achievements of the sole administrator, what's the key achievement? What's one thing that he'll be remembered for? Prosecuting local council elections and giving power to Wike supporters. So many of the people who got into power were people that were in alignment with the Minister of the FCT, meaning that Governor Fubara has lost his structures, as it were, in River State. And if he's coming back into power, resuming today, he doesn't have that much at his pleasure. But now going to the future, because we've talked about the past a lot, is what next for Governor Fubara? I feel, and if I have the opportunity to advise, would be legacy. It is very unlikely that he'll be returning for a second term, very unlikely. I'm not ruling it out completely. So what he can do in the last 2 years of his tenure is to finally do something for the people who voted him in, who entrusted their votes in his candidature by actually addressing key issues in River State. These people have not had proper governance in the last 2 years. It's just been one political fight to the other. So some civil servants haven't been paid from what I heard for the August month. Can they be paid? Can we look at issues around education, infrastructural development in River State? Can we talk about peace, bringing the people together to quell, the tension that has been in River State for so long? So I do believe that it is important for him in terms of legacy, even though he might not have a lot of power because the State House of Assembly is now in, most of them are not in his party or working with him. And so he would have a tight time on his hands, but he can leave a few things so that people can remember Governor Siminalayi Fubara for good at the end of his 4-year tenure. I don't know if he wants to run again.
I don't know if he will run again, whether he still has a taste for politics after that. But just to give more dimensions to the story, the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, who of course had been central to this, also weighed in to President Tinubu's announcement. In a statement from his media aide, Wike commended the people of the state for their belief in the president, but also cautioned, and I quote, troublemakers, saying that, and I quote again, the only news that will emanate from River State going forward will be that of peace, progress, and development, end of quote. And I think we all say a very big amen to that, because that is all we want. When the commentary is happening, the analysis is happening, it's not because anybody wishes anybody ill. It's because people want to see the dividends of democracy reach the grassroots. That's all.
What's the meaning of that message? The only statement that was peace, development. Were we the ones that started the war in River State? Is it not Wike and Fubara that started the war? If he understood the essence of peace, it's so easy for him to talk about peace now. Is it because he's been able to bully Fubara and everything ruled in his favor? The court ruled in his favor. Is that not why he's talking? See, in all of this, there are many things that have gone wrong. There will never be as much umph about the judiciary again. Same in this country, people that officially said they were going to another political party, they said they have not decamped to. Because we've forgotten some funny rulings that happen. We've forgotten some funny rulings that happen. Have we forgotten? 90-day threshold. Wike went to court. It suited him. They ruled on it. Cancelled the local government elections. The same 90-day threshold was violated in these elections. Exactly in contravention of what the court ruled last year. But now they claim it's under state of emergency. And when they had the local, what did we have? It's not in the local one that we had the miracle of Ekpoma. Over 300,000 votes. Even Wike himself said he didn't get that high number. That's why I say the Dr. Gift in Ekpoma that won the local government. He's a real political hero. Over 300,000. Almost as much as the number of votes from one local government that Fubara even got generally in the governorship elections.
The entire election.
So we had the miracle of Ekpoma. Funny, shambolic, a joke of an elections. And elections that showed us that is this how deplorable Nigeria has become. But what did he do? They claimed victory because it suits them. Then you were talking about President Tinubu exhausting civil and legal. President Tinubu was a biased party. From day one.
Exhausted.
No, he said he should have exhausted. How do you want him to exhaust a biased party from day one? You forget that it's the same President Tinubu that they all went to Abuja to do a peace deal. That he pretty much signed a deal that was going to become political harakiri for Fubara to go and bow down for Wike. Has he not taken sides from day one? Then the next arguments they will make, they will say, the state of emergency was to save, which saved Fubara. They should have just impeached him and let Fubara go to court and be fighting his impeachment, rather than, create an aberration to our democracy. That's why you see President Tinubu, with how many foolscap shit did he write yesterday? He couldn't still justify anything about the state of emergency. Right. With how many foolscap shits? That is up to one foolscap shit. He will explain, tire. Right. No evidence. He will explain, tire.
Yeah.
So what's the justification? You see, we live in a country where we don't tell ourselves the truth. Today, a case was filed in the Supreme Court 9/4/25, 9 April 25. And what's it called happened? 18/3/25. Till today, we didn't see anything out of that case. So it's a reminder of what Nigeria has become.
Yeah. All right. Well, the president in his statement did, of course, say that if he hadn't taken this action, that it would have been a colossal failure. That's his position. And of course, I think as Fubara returns to office and settles in, we will be in a better position to judge whether this move really did do any positive or was it a total damage for the state. I believe our correspondent is on the ground and he has been updating us and says that the members of the State House Assembly are starting to convene for a session this morning. So please make sure you stay tuned so we can give you updates on that. Well, now let's shift our attention from River State. Let's bring the conversation back to Lagos. Unfortunately, it is a sad update to a story that we first brought you yesterday. This morning, we're learning that 7 people have been confirmed dead from the fire incident at Afriland Tower in Lagos Island yesterday. And of those 7 people, 4 of them were employees of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. In a statement posted on X, FIRS said that management and staff is deeply saddened by the tragic loss of their 4 colleagues in the fire incident that occurred on Tuesday at Afriland Towers. The unfortunate incident has thrown the entire FIRS community into mourning. FIRS occupies the 6th and 7th floors, and upon being alerted, our security and safety officials swiftly mobilized and contacted the fire service. But by the time emergency responders arrived, thick smoke had already engulfed the building. The special advisor on media to the FIRS chairman, Dare Adekambi, in a statement on Wednesday, identified the affected staff members as Mrs. George, Mr. David Sunday Jato, Mrs. Nkem Onyemelukwe, and Mr. Peter Ifaramaye. Now, may their souls rest in peace. So this is incredibly sad. There are also the other victims who are yet to be identified. And President Tinubu has also put out a statement expressing his deepest condolences to the families of the victims. Online, some users have been advocating for mandatory smoke detectors and fire alarms in all buildings, saying that this loss of life could have been avoidable. Rufai, when was the last time you took part in a fire drill in Nigeria?
No. You see, these things are a rarity in Nigeria. Like I say, there's a problem of culture. Culture will use strategy for breakfast. It's a rarity in this country. Is it fire drills, emergency drills? It's not part of the culture here. In fact, how many homes can they check the fidelity of their fire extinguisher? How many homes even have fire extinguisher in the first place? So you see, these things are not part of the culture, but it is a sad one. Because when it comes back to haunt us, it leads to needless death. How many times have people have fire extinguisher in their homes serviced? Do they even know where there's fire extinguisher in their homes? It's not soap and water most people use when the fire starts. So you see, that's the kind of country we live in. Then the question we should ask, where are the fire emergencies and the fire exits in a building like that? What happened? Almost every apartment, I don't like comparing America with Nigeria, but don't let me compare. But almost every apartment should have fire exits, fire drills, fire blankets, sprinklers, and other things like that. So these are part of the safety procedures, but we don't have it. It's just sad that people have had to lose their life. I was hearing as I was coming on the radio today, a woman talking about the story of another woman, that her husband, I think, went to work or something, was about to travel when he heard the call that his wife was affected by the fire. I think she passed. So you see, these are sad times for us, but I just hope this will help us now change our culture.
It's preventable.
All right. Okay. So it's preventable. That's a key word. Preventable, and also because if we had all these regulations in place, so all these fire safety equipment in place, we would have reduced the number of casualties. Beyond the FIRS staff members that died, we also had Heirs Holdings. Tony Elumelu, who is the chairman of Heirs Holdings, had come out to talk about mourning the loss of some of his staff members there. So these were preventable deaths if there were certain procedures that followed. In the UK in 2017, there was a big fire, the Grenfell fire, which killed about 72 people. Following that, the Hackett, a committee was set up, headed by Hackett, and a Hackett report was released. This is how responsive governments are to situations like this. What we often call is a full investigation. What went wrong? Were there some things that ought to have been put in place to mitigate the extent of the impact of this fire? And where we see that, it should then inform policy changes, whether in our building review or on fire safety regulations. These are the kind of things that we should do to prevent the nature of this happening in the future. But would we do it? Unfortunately, I'm not sure if this is a move. We don't want to have just condolence messages. We don't want to just have, oh, I'm sorry that this amount of people died. It's what do we then do as a result of that? Let the impact, the sad impact of this incident move us to policy direction. Buildings must have certain things in place to ensure that when there's a fire like this, they're able to respond quickly. Our fire service, yesterday Dr. Bassey talked about it being the oldest, one of the oldest services in the nation. How have we improved since it's 100 years in existence? How do we saw the way people were jumping off the roof? Are people in the building aware of safety, fire and safety regulations, and how to move? Who is the accountability person? That's what came out from the Grenfell report. There should be an accountability person. Is there a fire exit? Are there places that people should gather? A lot of people are ignorant of these things. And so during an incident like this, there's a lot of panic and it causes or increases the number of casualties. Perhaps we would not be mourning these people if these things were in place. But what we can do for them as legacy is to ensure that we never have to have this kind of incident. Accidents happen, but the effect of the accident can be reduced or minimized if we have certain things in place. That's what's missing in the country. And I'm hoping that this will be a wake-up call for us, not just in Lagos, but across the country.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know you also mentioned Tony Elumelu,
yes.
And it's good to hear that he's cut short his trip to the United Nations General Assembly to come back and attend to this very devastating tragedy. Well, now to Edo State, where we'd like to highlight a shocking video that shows the sheer impact of erosion and flooding on a community. The video we're about to show is taken from a road in Ekpoma, Edo State, where a number of people attempted to cross. But flooding is so intense that eyewitnesses observe as a man is physically lifted and carried away by the strength of the current as others cry out for help. At a different point in the video, other people are forced to hold themselves up with trees. Let's take a look.
That's a compact. That can hate you to isn't it? Hey! Hey! You don't go. Hey! God! 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 Hey! Hey! That guy power go finish.
Terrible. Now, we're going to stay on this topic concerning flooding because we also want to highlight another video posted on social media, this time from Igboshoro, Ogun State. This video captured a completely flooded pathway. And in this clip, residents of all ages, from school children to the elderly, are struggling to wade through the water as other citizens step in to help them get across. Let's take a look.
This is my area. You can see the rate at which water is disturbing us here. Only God knows when we will get home today. See the way people have parked their vehicles. Students cannot even go home to meet their parents. Even the elderly ones too cannot cross it. Or how we want to get a car to cross this area like this. They have to carry another student. You can just imagine it. Please come to our aid, Ogun State government. Please come to our aid. We really need your help in Igboshoro Oniburuku area. Come to our aid. We need you. Thank you so much. God bless.
Now, as we heard, the person who posted this last video on X is specifically calling on the Ogun State government and the governor to help, saying that what we just saw is something that happens every single time it rains. But taking these two videos together, I mean, it's clear that we have a flooding problem, and it's not just isolated to Edo State or Ogun State. Now, I know earlier this week, the meteorological department had highlighted and warned people that there would be heavy flooding across the country. We felt it heavily in Lagos. But I think here the idea is to highlight those areas that are more, shall I say, adversely affected by flooding. So it's not just about, oh, you know, my car or this. These are people who don't have any alternative. This is their only access to whether it be schools or to go to work and so forth. And we can't seem to figure out how to manage natural disasters, climate change, the ills that nature is posing against us every single year in different parts of the country.
You see, in other parts of the world, flood happened. You have high level of flooding. Like in Spain, you remember when that incident happened, that a lot of people were affected, that people protested even against the king and all of that. You have that. But you see, the problem with Nigeria's case is different. Is the fact that the reason why you have water accumulating, a lot of water that becomes flood, is because of mostly the case of the drainage channels. And on this, I'll give kudos to Tokumbo in Lagos State, how they opened some of the drainage channel and the water went. But in some of these states, most of the drainage channel are not effective. Also, areas where you have undulating landscape that are undeveloped, and you can't channel the water, a fund was provided called ecological flood. Areas like parts in Anambra and some other parts of the country, and some other states generally across the country where you have these problems, and you have ecological flood provided. The question is, what did most of these governors use them? They whack the money. We all remember the ecological fund back and forth that happened. Talk about ecological funds. So are we deploying this money to what we ought to use? Because when you also look at it on the flip side of it, if we're a government that was thinking, flood water can also be a blessing in the sense that these waters can actually be collected, can be channeled into many things, to provision of electricity and the likes, can be channeled into just like the damming system. But how do we even manage it in the first place? You remember the dam incident that happened in Borno that led to a lot of loss of life, that the dam was going down. So it's the way we manage. It's not that you don't have, in other countries of the world, you have flood that, there are water that burst their banks. Yeah. There are times that water will definitely go beyond its threshold, the millimeter of rainfall. But the case here is that most of these cases are cases that can easily be avoided if we have built embankments and to be able to take this into cognizance and consideration and issue out these warnings. We all remember the Niger flood and things like that. We all remember how it washed away things and people, dead bodies were being brought out of. But the question is, how did we make the measures to be able to mitigate them? So the problem here is, it's always a problem we could have mitigated in the first place.
All right. Are we learning lessons? Doesn't seem like it.
It goes back to the first story and how disasters will happen, accidents will happen, flood will have heavy rainfalls. We are by the coast. It's a rainforest country. We will have rainfalls, but it's what we do and how we plan. Every year, every single year, the announcements about a potential heavy rainfalls and potential flood. Every year, there's money given to governors through the Ecological Fund. Every year, we see heavy rainfalls, and every year we have heavy flooding that disrupts lives and livelihoods across the country. Not just in Edo State, not just in Ogun State, in Lagos State, in different parts of the country, we see it happen. But what do we do about it? We are often reactive. After an incident like this, we release statements as to how this must not happen again. An unfortunate incident, we mourn with the people who have lost lives. But nothing is being done. We cannot continue to be a reactive nation. We've talked about the solutions. We've brought guests, we've analyzed it at length. It is actually taking these information and turning it into action. And that's why I said earlier on that we cannot just face the center for the federal government. We need to hold our governors to account. What are they doing? There are many things around governance. People say, they're just politicking rather than participating in governance. What do the people have as evidence of having a good government structure in place? And these are the kind of things that we talk about. It is preventable, or the losses can be minimal. We see other disasters in natural occurrences around the world. In Canada, it is the snow. In America, we have the fires. But it's the way in which it's managed that differentiates countries from that. Nigeria can certainly do better, and it's sad to see that we must continue to bring these stories up as headline before we then react, and then next year again we continue to speak about it and react again.
That's it. What is really going on with our disaster response and our preparation for all of these? And I think another important angle to chime into this is the fact that deforestation is getting worse and worse. Given our current economic realities, people can no longer afford cooking gas and things of that nature. People are now going to cut down trees to be able to cook meals and to be able to keep themselves going. And in essence, what does that do? That, contributes towards climate change and the degradation of the environment and makes flooding more rampant. So a story that needs to be focused on, and we need the repetition of this story to stop at some point soon. All right, now let's take a story from Zambia. We spoke about this briefly earlier, but no harm in revisiting it, where 2 men have just been sentenced to 2 years in prison for allegedly attempting to use witchcraft to kill the Zambian president, Hakainde Hichilema. Leonard Piri and Justin Mabulese Kandude were first arrested in December when they were found with all sorts of charms, including a live chameleon. Both men insist that they were traditional healers, with one of them, Piri, demonstrating that once they pricked and used the chameleon's tail during the ritual, death would happen in as soon as 5 days. Well, this case was closely watched by the entire country, and it's significant because it's also the first time in Zambian history that anyone has ever been on trial for attempting to use witchcraft against a president. Now, according to the prosecution, Piri and Kandude were both hired by a former fugitive MP who wanted to bewitch President Hichilema. As of now, the president has not commented on this case. Now, in addition to the 2 years they were given, they have also received an additional 6 months just for possessing charms. Now, their lawyer said they were hoping for leniency as they were both first-time offenders. Well, it seems like there's an admission of guilt from one of them. But, earlier we looked at the fact that, is this really what should be taking up a country's national discourse? It would be interesting to also look at another aspect of the conversation, which is that one man is saying he's a traditional healer and not a witch. So how do we draw the line? Which one is traditional healing? Which one is bewitching? Which one is, and can the court, what evidence can the court get into its custody that will be able, but he said it's traditional healing. It's not to bewitch anybody. So how do we decipher?
It's a very interesting story. It's funny, but they were resurrected in 1914 law. Mm-hmm. So this law was first enacted in Zambia in 1914. And now,
by the colonizer.
Yes, and now it goes back to the conversation we were having as to who defines what witchcraft is. Some traditional practices or the use of herbs were seen then, was demonized at the time and seen as witchcraft. And then this law came in. But really, the law was put in place to protect, because you also remember that some people were also attacked largely because they thought they used practices that people didn't understand. So it was also as a mechanism to protect at the time in 1914. But we can also see how, when it is useful for political strategy, that you can actually take a law in 1914 that was probably, they forgot to expunge it from the constitution of Zambia, now brought it out to say that someone wants to kill the president via witchcraft. At the end of the day, Vimbai, what you see is politics at play. Even though the president hasn't said anything, because he himself has come out in the past to say that he does not believe in witchcraft. But as you asked the previous guest, there are people who have taken up the matter on his behalf in defense of the president to say that, well, you want to kill our president using witchcraft. Like you said, it's very difficult to determine whether or not what they were doing was witchcraft. And that's why it's difficult to see how any court was able to rule in that way based on the evidence before them. But I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll read the certified true copy of the court case to see. But I think it's also important to say that we should desist in Africa, not just in Zambia, across different, to begin to pull out loopholes or different, very mundane things or irrelevant things to use to to persecute political enemies. I think that is at the end of it is just using tools to prosecute political enemies. That's what it is.
Absolutely. I think some people might also ask, what's the difference between this and Christians who pray, die by fire? My enemy must die by fire. What's the difference? Anyway, before we take our good news report, let's head to the UK, where later today, US President Donald Trump will meet British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at his country estate. It will be a marked shift in programming to politics from the pageantry that's been observed already in the last few days. So, including the state banquet that took place last night, where President President Trump told UK royals that it was, and I quote, one of the highest honors of his life. Well, first on display was King Charles and President Trump honoring the white tie dress code with the king in full regalia. First Lady Melania Trump went bold in a yellow gown on the red carpet, while Queen Camilla opted for darker colors in royal blue. Not too far behind was Catherine, Princess of Wales. Good to see her in good health, by the way, and she was wearing a gold couture gown. She topped off her look with a lover's knot tiara. Now, what we're seeing currently on our screens are live pictures from the UK as Donald Trump disembarks from his aircraft and prepares for the proceedings for the day. But here's a fun fact. The crown that was worn by Catherine, Princess of Wales, was reportedly one of Princess Diana's favorites and originally belonged to Queen Mary. For Melania Trump, it was the first time many saw her face yesterday for a long time. Of course, she doesn't always make public appearances, and she was wearing a wide-brimmed hat that hid her eyes. One fashion analyst noted that this could point to a stance that she wants all eyes to be on President Trump and his agenda during this trip. Well, people will analyze all sorts. All of these details reminding us that the pageantry around state visits still endures as one of the most powerful tools in British diplomacy, Rufai, even with these expensive crowns that were created from the wealth of our nations.
Yes, it's our crown. Anyway, I said those are live pictures. I think President Trump is supposed to meet with Keir Starmer today in London, and they're going to have conversations as regards a lot of the tech deals that companies like Nvidia and some other people are there. I think afterwards they're going to go to Chequers, where that's the Prime Minister's sort of like holiday resort of some sort, where they're going to have further conversations and deliberation. But we can't forget, Vimbai, you see, the UK parades a lot of our stolen assets.
Yes.
That's a talk for another day. Is it the Kohinoor diamonds that were stolen out of India? When they colonized, they came and they stole a lot. And when they were stealing by colonizing, they made a lot of laws about things they didn't understand. Mm-hmm. So take, for instance, in Zambia in 1914, they made the witchcraft law because they didn't understand it. And also because they saw a big pushback. If you go to the history of the Southern African region, when the likes of Cecil Rhodes ruled around those areas, you also had the tribal men that fought very valiantly against them. When you go to South Africa, you remember the case where the British had like a Scotch Ed policy when they had the Boer War. The Boer fought them. Also, the local minority tribe, they'd fight them back in return. So when they saw the expressions of these people, they called it witchcraft and all of that, So the man has been able to make distinction. Yes, the African traditional beliefs, the attempt to demonize African traditional belief is a very sad one, So when they are talking about, I think the biggest witchcraft, like I said before, is somebody that you fought as a political rival in life, and in death you are preventing the body from being buried. I think he finally won the case. Now you were just telling me that the former president's body is going to be brought back into Zambia for a state burial after delaying and going against the dead man's wish. His final wish. He said he didn't want to be buried in Zambia, not by force. So I think that's the highest level of witchcraft. The real level of witchcraft is the fact that the economy of Zambia has been taken over because of the debt to the Chinese people, and the fact that you're not able to pay them and you're now indebted to the Chinese. I think that's the real level of witchcraft that Africa needs to tackle. Absolutely. Not all this talk and putting too many in jail. You put them in jail. Why are African leaders always afraid of their shadow? It's because they have not done well. So,
yeah. Thank you so much for that, Rufai. And also, Zambia is one country where, the Chinese involvement is so heavy that the police actually has Chinese nationals in it. All right. Of course, we continue to see live pictures as Donald Trump.
That's Chequers. Yeah.
Okay, Donald Trump is meeting with Keir Starmer as a prelude to the meetings that will be held today. All right, let's now take our good news report before we close. And today, the good news report highlights the impact of a Benue State teacher on a student in his community, reminding us of the critical role teachers play in their students' lives. All right, now, earlier this month, a new teacher with Benue State Universal Basic Education Board, Nicodemus Locha, started his new job at LGEA Primary School at Seikyo in Guma local government area. But to his surprise, the school had low turnout with only one student Kenen Opa turning up on the first day of class. In a post on Facebook with a picture of the classroom, the teacher wrote, "Only one student was present and humbly discharged my duty. As an educationist and a trained teacher, I am eligible to teach all subjects. We give glory to God Almighty." A few days after making this post, Locha then announced that a Good Samaritan, an officer who values education, saw his post and decided to support the student by giving him 10,000 naira. He then invited the headmistress, the student, Opa, and his parents to present him with the money. Let's take a look.
So I'll give the money to the HM now. And we'll give it to...
All right. Of course, it's a token and it's the thought that counts with regards to that gesture. And I believe that's all we have time for today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I thank myself.
And well done, yes.
You're
Since 6 a.m. this morning.
We fought the good fight.
Well done.
Thank you,
You're
guys.
proper.